Hello, everybody, and good afternoon for those of you who are just joining us to Amplify 2024. We have had such an incredible lineup of speakers, and this session not only is by some of my close friends in the industry, but wonderful women leaders who are helping to transform the industry in many different ways, but so empowering. They are actually at Women in Auto Care right now, live at the event doing this session. So we're so grateful to have you guys here to talk about enhanced communication for repair shops. So I want to introduce each of you guys. So Tracy Capriotto, who is at the top of my screen, so I'm going to introduce in that way. Tracy is the director of content and producer for the Remarkable Results Radio podcast. If you haven't heard of them, which would be very shocking because it is the largest podcast in the industry. Please go check them out. They do have a booth with us for their podcast, which we'll link over to their page, but incredible content that you and your father, Carm Capriotto, put out to continue to grow the industry just with innovation and content, basically with shop owners, right? Telling the shop owner story. Another wonderful friend who I get the pleasure to introduce is Sara Fraser. Sara is the VP of Business Development and Client Services at Haas Performance Consulting. Over the years, I've had the pleasure of working with both you and your father, Bill, to not only improve upon our product, but really to partner together to improve the lives of shop owners. And it's wonderful to see you guys grow in the industry, and we are so glad to have you. So guys, I will turn it over to you. Thank you again for talking on enhanced communication. I know that this is going to be a wonderful session.
Thank you so much, Amber. Amber, you've been a great friend in the industry, and being a partner with AutoLeap has been a fantastic experience. So thrilled to be here. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. When Amber first approached Tracy and I and was like, hey, I want you guys to do something together for Amplify, and Tracy and I got together and we were throwing around different topics. What can we teach on? What should we talk about? What would bring value? And communication was just a no-brainer for us because Tracy and I, over the past year, have been really involved in a Toastmasters group specifically for the aftermarket. And we're going to be talking quite a bit about Toastmasters today, and we'll give you lots of information on what that is if you've never heard of it before. But it's really helped us improve our communication professionally, personally, speaking, listening, all of the things across the board. So this was a no-brainer for us to get together and help you guys with communication and talk a little bit about that. So Tracy, only 13% of US workers strongly agree that organizations' leadership uses communication effectively. Did this statistic surprise you at all?
It truly did not. And I think this statistic is very eye-opening because it goes in line with people assuming they're really great at communication. But if that was the case, I think that percentage would be a little bit higher. So we're really going to be talking about what you need to look for of communication, how you can improve it, and how you really need to exercise it. Almost like going to the gym. And we are under the assumption that we are great communicators because we can talk a lot. We can talk all the time. But as you'll hear, it's a little bit of a different story that Sara and I are going to paint today.
I love that you said exercise it, because for me, that's what Toastmasters is. We meet twice a month. We meet virtually. So this is a group. It's actually called Remarkable Results Toastmasters. It's a group that Craig O'Neill put together for us. And we come together. We have an hour meeting twice a month, and you get to do impromptu speaking, you get to do planned speaking. But even if you are not a speaker, just being in those meetings, you learn so much. You learn how to listen, you take on different roles, we learn time management, and we're going to touch a lot on those topics today, but that has become our gym. It is something that you have to practice, and communication is at the core of everything we do. And so to hear 13%, I honestly was actually surprised by that number. I was like, that's really low, really, really low. And if we're not using, if our employees don't think that from the leadership level, we're communicating effectively, that's a problem. There's a gap there. And so I'd love to give some strategies and ideas on how we can help to close that gap and become better communicators, because it truly is the beginning of every interaction we have. Something I didn't mention at the beginning is I believe there's a way that you guys can throw in questions or chat. I believe Amber can field those and let us know. So if you guys have questions throughout the session, don't wait till the end. I'd love to be able to take care of them right away. Amber, is that right, that you can do that as we're going?
I absolutely will. And I just put it in
Okay.
the chat. So please feel free to ask and we will weave them through, guys. This is obviously for you and we want to make sure we get you the answers.
Perfect. And then, of course, if we have time at the end, we'll open up for questions. But if you have them throughout, just throw them at us. So talking about leaders and using effective communication, the thing about leaders is they listen too little and they talk too much. Trace, have you ever found yourself in a situation where, in a past job, maybe you felt like you couldn't even get a word across to your boss, but they were just constantly talking, giving you all this information, and it was like a one-way street?
Absolutely. And it made me feel like my voice didn't matter and that whatever I said, it really didn't affect change. Even a good idea, a bad idea, there wasn't that two-way communication. I really believe that as people want to follow leaders, and as a leader, it's not one singular line. It has to be a two-way street. And I think as leaders too, they can kind of get caught up in, well, I think I'm doing a really good job because no one has said anything to me. Well, maybe you haven't had that open line of communication and that safe environment where employees can come to you with that true open door communication style where they can talk to you about hard things. They can talk to you about questions that they may have. And if you don't have that two-way street, you will keep thinking you are on a two-way street.
Right. So you're, as a leader, as a manager, you're going, well, I'm having all this communication with them. I'm telling them all the things to do. We're talking all the time. But if all you're doing is talking and not allowing that space for them to talk and for you to listen, it's not great communication. It's not effective communication. And so listening is something that is a skill. Listening is something that takes work. And especially when we're talking about active listening and being an active listener, because just because you're allowing somebody to talk and somebody to speak doesn't mean you're listening. And this is something I practice all the time because I've learned I'm not the best listener. Our rate of speech and the rate at which we take information much quicker than the rate of speech that somebody talks. So I have a tendency when somebody's telling me something, especially my husband, who likes to give me a lot of details and take a really long time to tell his story, in my brain, I'm finishing that story already. I'm like, I know where this is going. I know what he's going to say. So I've checked out and I've already ended the story for him. And I wasn't actually listening.
Right. And the important part of that is the active part. So has anyone ever been victim to selective hearing, maybe with your kids, maybe with a spouse, or maybe with a senior old dog that you have? Because we have all done that. I have done that as well. So there is kind of almost like a dial with active listening. And that is something that Sara and I have both really become in tune with Toastmasters because they give you the tools, as Sara and I will as well during this presentation, to really find what you should be listening to. People often get caught up with, well, as long as someone is speaking and I'm technically not saying anything, like I'm being a very good listener, but are you being intentional about that? Or are you thinking about maybe you have a grocery list you have to write out? Maybe you have, your kids have to go to soccer. What time is it? And you're thinking elsewhere while someone is speaking, but you're not actually listening to the words that you say, and which leads to a lot of times people interpret what they're listening as a reflection on them. Okay, Sara's telling me this story, and how does this affect me? And I'm going to have my response be about me. And throughout this whole presentation, Sara and I are really going to drive home that communication and listening is about the other person. And once you really practice that, it opens up your world, because as humans, we are all genetically coded that we think about ourselves, right? We think about ourselves all the time, what we're going to be doing, what we're thinking, how is this going? But active listening and effective communication is all about the other person. And that's something that I think people have a hard time really understanding, because with communication, we just want to talk about ourselves, right? What's going on with our
Sure.
world? What's happening? How would I have handled your situation, Sara? So instead of thinking about yourself and how you are going to respond to someone communicating, you actually do need to listen to the words that they're saying and understand it from their perspective.
It's like when somebody's telling you a story and you have a similar experience and you want to share that, but you're so excited about telling your story that you've now checked out and you're not even listening to them. It makes me think of a scene in my favorite TV show, Gilmore Girls, where the mom is telling her daughter about this dream that she had. And the daughter goes, "Oh my gosh, I had this dream about," and then she starts talking about her dream. And the mom's like, "Hey, you just did that thing where now like my dream doesn't even matter anymore because now we're only talking about your dream," you know? So being able to actively listen with intention and not only thinking about ourselves. Tracy, you had some really great points there. And I think that's absolutely true. Finding the way to make it not just about us.
And Sarah, I would like to also throw in there active listening is also just because you're not speaking, what is your body language? What are you doing? Are you looking at the person or are you on your cell phone? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Or maybe looking at your watch or maybe looking around. So your body language is a huge beacon of how are you really listening to that person? How are you making them feel? If Sarah and I were doing this presentation, but half the time we're like, oh wait, hold on, Sarah. Hold on, I got a text. You know what? That wouldn't be great. So we have to really be
What?
intentional about people. We have to be intentional about the people that are coming to us to talk to us because no matter what, any form of communication is intimate when you think about it. Yeah, okay, you're at the grocery store and you're checking out, but it's all about actually connecting with people. And that is something that we see all the time in auto repair shops is it's not about the business, it's about the people. It's not about profits, it's about the people. It's the people business. And when you have that hyper focus and something Sarah and I will also be really driving home is the words that you say really matter to people and how you say it is another huge piece of how it's impacting them for the good or for the bad.
For sure. For sure. So there are some techniques that I use to help me become a better listener because I know this about myself that I'm not a great listener because I tend to interrupt people. And I never really realized that until I would rewatch a session where I was co-teaching with somebody, especially with my dad, who tends to take long pauses for effect. And I think he's done talking and I jump in. And so learning to let conversations have a little bit of space to breathe so I'm not constantly interrupting or speaking over somebody. So I listen in conversations like I'm going to be tested on them later. So that makes me really in tune to this conversation and this communication that I'm taking in all this information. I think, okay, I'm going to be tested on this later. And then I also pick out things to repeat what they said, to make sure that I understand it correctly or in the way that they said that. So these are things, where you practice active listening, the best way to practice this is at home with your spouse, with kids, with your best friends. Great place to practice your active listening. So I've started when my husband and I are having conversations, I'll repeat something he said and make sure that I understood it in the way that he meant it. I ask a lot of follow-up questions, even though, so if you guys have ever done anything with personality profiles and DISC profiles, Tracy and I are just coming off of Women in Auto Care where we did a lot with DISC. We're not going to get into it today because in 40 minutes, there's just not enough time to dig in, but there's some really great tools out there to use to help you understand people's personalities and the way they communicate. So I'm a high D, which is a very I'm a high I with a high D, but I'm a get to the point, tell me the facts. I don't need a long story. My husband is like a high CS. So he wants to give me all these facts and all these things and take a really long time to tell that story. I now know that about him and I know the way he likes to communicate. And so I'm able to ask him more questions. Well, how did you feel about that? Or why did that happen? Or how do you think that could have been better? Or how do you wish that situation would have gone? And now I'm actively in the conversation and I'm responding, but I'm not responding with, oh yeah, that happened to me one time. Let me tell you about how that happened with me or how I would have done that. It's more how do you feel about that? Or what do you think you could have done differently or they could have, whatever the situation is, but asking those open-ended questions that leads to more conversation. And we can do this with our employees. We can do this with our customers because that's how we build relationships. And as Tracy said, we are in a people industry and the communication and the relationships we have are at the core of that. The other thing that I think is a great tool is just to ask for clarification. If you didn't understand something, you're not going to look stupid for asking somebody to clarify, to just be vulnerable and be like, wait, what did you mean by that? Or can you explain that to me a little bit further, so that you're not thinking, and then having completely the wrong story because you didn't ask for that clarification.
Love it, Sarah.
So another big part of what we do involves teamwork, right? We have a lot of people who work with us. We need to work together, and communicating together is a huge piece of that, and understanding how we all communicate differently. So being able to know just simple things like, this person likes facts and statistics and numbers. This person responds more to words that are about feelings and intentions and emotion, and being able to use this, because there's no bad with that. There's no bad disc profile. They're just different. We just communicate differently, and being able to learn and understand those things build such stronger teams and such stronger communication skills to help us serve our customers and our community better. So with that teamwork piece, some things that we think are really important in having great teamwork is being adaptable and being inclusive. Having an open mind, to have conversations, and an open communication line with our employees. Like Tracy was talking about earlier, having that boss who only talked. You didn't feel like you had that open communication line with them, correct?
Mhm.
So being able to have that where we feel comfortable and we can be transparent and we can have those conversations, and that we're also all included on conversations and topics and decisions. I worked in a shop, and there were a lot of times where the shop owner would pull people into a little huddle and I wouldn't be included in that. And I think for me, it felt like, why am I not being included? I don't matter. I'm not important. It would kind of hurt my morale for the day, even though that meeting probably had nothing to do with me. I wasn't included in it because I needed to be answering the phone. I needed to be in the office if somebody walked in the door. I had other responsibilities. So pulling me into the back to be in this meeting didn't make sense. But at the time, I'm just like, why is everybody else involved in something and I'm not? And I felt so excluded by it. And I wish, looking back at that point in my career, that I had had the language and the communication skills to communicate with my boss how it made me feel, because I know now he had no intention of ever making me feel excluded. And I think that's something to think about in our business. Are we doing things that are affecting people in a way that we're not even realizing? Because I'm sure, if he knew that, he would have changed. He would have at least said, hey, Sarah, we're going to be chatting about this just so you know what we're talking about. We're going to fill you in later. Or maybe we'll start doing the meetings in the morning before we open so you can be involved in it, or something like that. But being able to have that open communication line to let him know. And I'm sure he would have made a change. I just wish at that time I had been confident enough in my skills to be able to say something like that. So something we took away from women in auto care was the platinum rule. And I'm going to let Tracy tell you guys about that.
So everyone knows the golden rule is treat people how you want to be treated. Well, as Sarah was saying, at Women in Auto Care, we learned about the platinum rule. And I don't know about you, Sarah, if I have the choice between gold and platinum, I'm probably gonna go platinum. So
Absolutely.
the platinum rule, if you guys don't know what it is treat people how they want to be treated. So again, it's not about you and how you would have handled the situation, how you would have felt in that situation. It's how that person is feeling. So that's why being in tune to the words that they're saying, their body language, and asking those questions, like Sarah was saying, it opens that door to how that person is processing something that they are coming to talk about.
Exactly. And being able to learn how those people think and feel and the way that they want to communicate, or how our actions are affecting them. And this is even in friendships. I have a friend who used to be late to everything consistently. 15 minutes late. You would just know if she said, I'm going to be here at this time, you knew it was 15 minutes later. And it bothered me so much, because for me, it was like, you don't think I'm important enough. You don't think whatever we're doing is important enough to show up on time. And I eventually had a conversation with her about it. And she was like, that not it at all. You are one of the most important people in my life. And once we talked about it and had that communication, and she understood that being punctual, or at least sending a text message ahead of time, hey, I'm going to be late, was so important to me in the way that I communicate, that now she's communicating with me the way that I want to be communicated with. And it has been a game changer for us. So just being able to understand the way people want to be talked to, and that they're not going to do things the way we would do them. Tracy's not going to do something the way I would do it. And I'm not going to do things the way she would do it. And that's totally okay. There's no wrong there, right? It's just we're doing things the way in our style, and being able to learn people and understand them and have conversations and meet them where they're at is a huge part of that communication piece. And Tracy, I'm with you. I'm going to take platinum over gold any day of the week. So let's talk a little bit about meetings. So I talked about feeling excluded from those little huddles my boss would do, but meetings are a big part of our communication with our staff. How many of you are doing weekly, monthly meetings? I'm not sure if I can see the chat. Maybe Amber can fill us in on that. Oh, maybe I can. Hold on. I don't know.
Nothing yet, guys.
Nothing yet? Okay.
Nothing yet.
I'm just curious if it's like if you have a planned meeting that you do once a month, or if it's just maybe an every Monday meeting. We want to give you some tools to use if you're doing those meetings, to give them a little bit of structure. And that's something that we've really taken from Toastmasters, because Toastmasters meetings are structured down to the minute. They are an hour long. They are planned. We never go over time. And when we first joined Toastmasters, I was really intimidated by that. I would look at the schedule and be like, okay, there's only this much time for this and this much time for this, and there's no time for socialization, and it's all just structure, structure, structure. But I have never left a Toastmasters meeting feeling like it was a waste of my time. And Tracy and I talked about this, and she brought this 3 Ps idea. And so I'm going to let her fill us in on where this comes from.
The 3 Ps of meeting. So I actually got this little nugget from Dan Taylor from an episode that he did with Carm. So right off the bat, I am not here saying I am the expert in communication and this is what you should be doing, because as Sara and I have been working on this presentation, it is always changing. Communication is always something that you need to learn. There's always something you can take from it. And so I have some resources from the podcast. I'm happy to share links to our specific episodes that I will be referencing if you want to do more of a deep dive into it. So Dan Taylor, he said this in the podcast, and I thought this is a very easy way to think about not only meetings, but also in general in conversation. So the 3 Ps: purpose, process, payoff. And in general, meetings, I mean, how many memes are there on the internet about meetings? Like, no one wants to do them. This could have been an email. And I think what happens is a lot of times when there are maybe some conflicts, there are things that maybe need to be tightened up a little bit in any organization. Oh, you know what? We'll just have a meeting and then it'll all get figured out. And if you're not going into that meeting with intention, intentional is brought up once again, and it will be over and over again in this presentation, is what is the purpose of the meeting? And do your employees understand the purpose going into the meeting? Or did you just fire off, hey, we're meeting at 9 o'clock, see you there? Who's in the meeting? Am I in trouble? You know, that kind of fill in the blank communication never works, because what happens to our mind? We automatically go to the worst possible situation. So if you think about communication as I need to fill in those gaps so my people don't fill it in with what they assume, because it will most likely be not what it really is about, because we always go to the worst case scenario. So purpose, make sure you have a purpose. Why are we going into this meeting? What is the process? Is this a half-hour meeting? Like Sara was saying, there's all different kinds. So what is the time structure? What will we be talking about? And then the payoff is so important. How many meetings do you leave and you don't have no idea what's going on, and you like, well, that's an hour of my life that I cannot get back. We just talked on the Zoom call for a half an hour and then we left with, all right, so our time is up, and you know what, just we'll work on this. We'll work on this. You have to have a payoff. So as an example, Sara and I are doing this presentation. Our purpose here is to give you some tools that we have learned in our professional and personal life to improve the communication in your shop and in your personal life as well. And the payoff is maybe you could pick up a few things, maybe you're writing a couple things down, and it's going to maybe change the way you think about conversation, the way you think about communication. And so that is the payoff. Having that kind of purpose process payoff with conversations, with meetings, is something that can really help business owners and leaders be clear and concise.
And I'm going to tag on to that, also transparent. So when you have that purpose predefined, so let's say you do a meeting every Monday, plan out your next 4 meetings. Look at the month ahead. What are topics that are going to be important that we're going to talk about? And let your staff know the theme of the meeting so that they can do some research and bring some things to the table. It's not just a off the cuff. They can be prepared and ready for that meeting, not walking into it thinking, oh my gosh, who's getting fired? What's happening? Something bad is happening. They now know the purpose ahead of time. And in the process part of it, you could create a schedule for that meeting and delegate some of those topics and give ownership to some of your employees. Hey, I really want you to talk for about 3 minutes on this topic at the meeting on the 3rd Monday this month. Let them have some ownership over that, get them involved, be transparent about what we're going to talk about, and the payoff is going to be significantly higher than just having a meeting to have a meeting with no purpose and no process. So time management, as Tracy mentioned, could this have been an email? If it's something simple that doesn't require 30 minutes, don't give it 30 minutes. Make it purposeful, stay on track. So if you tell somebody, hey, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to talk about this, there are easy and gentle ways to let them know when that 3 minutes is up. And in Toastmasters, we use colors. So they kind of raise a red flag if you've gone over your time and wrap it up, it's time. It's like the Oscar music playing you off the stage. We don't want to just interrupt you and tell you, hey, your time's done, stop talking, because that's what you have to say is valuable. We want to hear it, but we also need to stay on track. So, okay, let's wrap it up and let's move on. It's not social hour. We need to be effective with this time. Although I do think that being social is important with building relationships with teams. So maybe we schedule in the first 5 to 10 minutes of the meeting to talk about how our weekend was. So that time is being used for that. And we're not spending the whole meeting socializing and then all of a sudden, oh, we still need to talk about this. I have a meeting with my dad every single week, and I know that the first 5 to 10 minutes are going to be nothing about work. Anytime Tracy and I schedule a meeting, I swear we schedule it for 2 hours because we know we're going to have that social time. But if we don't have the time in our calendars to do that and we only have 30 minutes, we know when we hop on, we've got to get to work and get to the point and make sure that it has payoff. So have an agenda with those time parameters. So we've talked a little bit about employee communication, having meetings with our employees. I want to talk a little bit about customer communication as well, because the customers and the people are the heart of our business and what keeps us going.
Oh, I love this quote, Sarah. And I know this is something that you and I both are like, near and dear to our heart for so many reasons. There's no such thing as a neutral exchange between people. You leave someone either a little better or worse in every engagement. And Craig O'Neill said this in a podcast with Carm about Toastmasters. And that really resonated with me because we only, again, think about ourselves and what we're doing and what we're saying, but how does that other person feel? Are we lifting them up with positivity and support, or are we kind of, well, this is what I would have done? Are we kind of correcting, and are we giving our own judgment when it's not asked for? So if you can kind of always remember, which is simple in my mind, have those positive interactions. I don't care if you're on an elevator. I don't care if you're walking down the street. How much better does your day go when you smile at someone, when you say, hey, what floor are you on? And you have a little side chat. That person leaves and you're like, oh, like that was nice. Like that person was nice. So
Yeah,
let's use that in every aspect of our life and in our business.
for sure. This quote has stuck with me since Tracy brought it up. And Tracy and I joked last night that we're both members of the Craig O'Neill fan club. So Craig, if you're watching, we're going to get like jackets or something. So
Like a family crest or something.
But every interaction we have with the customer, am I making their day better or worse? Am I making their life easier or harder? What can I do to make this situation, which a lot of times our customers are in a tough situation. It's stressful to bring your car in. It could be an expensive repair. They're stressing about so many things. maybe in their own personal life that have nothing to do with this situation. How can I make their day a little bit easier? How can I give them a smile? How can I build this relationship with them and have them leaving here better and not worse?
And
I
I
will say
think,
something. Oh, go ahead.
go ahead, Sarah.
Oh, I was going to say compliments work. Compliments, if you don't know where to start with a conversation, compliments are a great intro to that. You know, with networking, it could be simple, oh, your shoes are really cute. But with customers, for me, when I went into an auto repair shop and they were like, oh, Sarah, you've been doing a really good job of maintaining and taking care of your vehicle. That was a great compliment. I was like, oh my gosh, I am. Hashtag adulting. I'm doing a good job. Somebody just complimented me on that. So compliments work to make somebody, to already put them in a better mood at the beginning of that interaction.
I was just gonna add in there, Sarah, that really auto repair is kind of a grudge buy when you think of it. I mean, you're not going to Best Buy and you're picking out a gorgeous 80-inch flat screen TV and you can't wait to watch the new Avatar on it. No, something happened with your car. You probably don't know what's going on. You don't know how much it's going to cost. You're going in with maybe that mask on of I may be taken advantage of because I'm unsure. So really, if you're able to win that customer over and be the hero of the day, that really builds a really strong connection, I feel, because someone may have come in grumpy, I don't know what I'm going to do, and now my car's going to, be out, and do I have a loaner car? Do I have to get a ride home? And if you can diffuse that kind of anxiety that customers have and kind of be on their side, be their ally, and like I said, be their hero where they feel, okay, this person's on my side. They got this. That is going to build a deeper connection. And I think that's really important for anyone to constantly remember is build the connection between people, find the commonality because people want to be with people at the end of the day. So I love this quote. And yes, Craig O'Neill truly has been an inspiration in my life. And from the minute I heard him in my ears on a podcast, he's just someone that I really look up to. So I also encourage anyone on this call today to kind of really think about, do you have someone in your life or someone at a conference that you felt, wow, they're doing a really great job at speaking and communicating. And you know what? Maybe people may have assumed, oh, well, that person's just naturally born that way. Well, as Sarah and I are using this presentation as these are tools that everyone can get better at doing.
Yes. And I think for employees to do this with customers, to be able to make their day a little bit better instead of a little bit harder, they need to be empowered. Our employees need to be empowered to take care of the customer. Tracy gave us the three P's earlier. I'm going to give you what I call my 3 T's of empowerment. So to empower an employee, we have to trust them. We have to trust them to do the job, and we have to stand behind them doing it the way they're going to do it, even if it's not the way that we would have done it. Because if we let them handle a situation and then afterwards say, it was okay, but I think, and we just start tearing it down and telling them all the negative, they're not going to step up and take care of the next customer that way. So we need to trust them. And if we don't trust them, we've either failed in the hiring process or we failed in the training process, which brings me to the second T. Our people need to be trained to do their job, and they need to have the tools to do their job. So they need to have the training and the trust behind them to take care of the customers. And the third T, they need to be appreciated. We need to thank them. That's a big thing. My dad will be like, back when I went to work, nobody had to thank me for coming to work. I went to work, I did my job, I went home. I teach a lot of content on millennials and Generation Z, and let me tell you, it is a whole different world. We need to be thanked for coming to work, and that little thank you goes such a long way. Puts me in a better mood. When I'm in a better mood, I'm going to have better interactions. I'm going to have better communication with my customers. So the 3 T's of empowerment: trust, train, and thank.
And Sarah, with the thank piece, something that I learned from researching this presentation is thanking, really effective thanking, kind of think of it as twofold. So a lot of times we may think, okay, hey Joe, thank you for a great day today. That is wonderful, of course. That's a great appreciation. You're recognizing someone, you're singling them out, you're being sincere about it, but let's kind of be more specific about it and kind of dial into something that you really noticed. So, hey Joe, great day today. I overheard on the phone that you may have had a really difficult customer, but at the end, I heard both of you laughing. So I really appreciate that you took the time to educate the customer, make them feel comfortable, and build a connection where they're kind of joking around with you. I really appreciate that. So thank you. What do you think's going to happen the next time Joe is on the phone? He's going to remember that and may, puff up his chest a little bit like, you know what? I did a good job. So be specific in your thank you when you can, because that really matters to people. Like, well, he thanked me, but what did I even do? Did I even do a good job today? I don't know. But if you're specific, it can really touch someone that it sticks with them and it builds confidence in your employees.
And that goes back to what you said earlier, intentional and specific. Thank you is great. But yeah, just a simple thank you. It's kind of oversaid to the point it needs to have some weight to it. So being able to give that specific, intentional thank you. Customer communication should be positive. We want to have positive interactions. And I want to touch that this is not just verbal face-to-face communication. This is communications we might have through text, we might have through email, we might have online. Reviews are a great place where we are receiving communication from our customers. And this is the spot where I tend to see a lot of interactions go negative. And what happens is the shop owner or whoever's responding to that review tends to be a little bit defensive or throw the blame on the customer. And so I want to give you a little piece of advice on responding to your reviews. First of all, please respond to all of them, positive and negative. But when you're responding to that negative review, give it a day or two. Take some time to breathe, because it's probably an emotional situation. It was probably a difficult customer in the first place. We have some emotions tied to it. Take a breath, walk away from it, come back to respond. And when you go to write that response, you're not writing it to the person who left it. I don't even know if that person's ever going to come back and read your response, but who is? It's all your prospective customers who have never come to you, who are checking you out to decide if they want to do business with you. So this response needs to be a positive interaction for those people.
Sara, I
So
love that you have said positive interactions is everywhere. It's not just the phone call, like you said. So think about all the touch points that your customers are seeing and hearing in your business, because that's all forms of communication. When they're pulling up to your shop, is there garbage kind of flying all around? The parking lines aren't painted. There's a janky looking, shrub that looks like it's dying and it's not painted and it looks a little sketchy. What does that customer feel? How do they feel? Well, how are they going to be with my car? Like, can I trust them with my car? When they walk into your shop, does it smell like tires, or does it smell, oh, this is nice and has maybe a nice scent? Or your waiting room, what does your waiting room look like? Are there, magazines up that really don't pertain to anything particular? Are there, tools hanging on the wall? And I will tell you this, most of your customers that are handling your car probably are females. And guess what? They want a nice bathroom. So what does your bathroom look like? How is that communicating to your customers? Do you have a gross bathroom that is just unkept? What does your customer think about? They're getting in my car. So there's all sorts of forms of communication, and everything goes back to the customer, even with the customer in the waiting room. Maybe they're sitting there waiting, and you maybe have two employees that get off the phone, and then they're chatting about a customer, or they're chatting about an employee, and it might be in a negative light. All of that is consumed by the customer. So I really love, Sara, that you said positive interactions is both verbal and nonverbal.
1000%. So Amber just gave us a 3-minute warning. I see that in the chat. So I know we have a lot of content.
Oh my gosh, the 3-minute warning.
Now
We're at a
have
3-minute warning. Tracy
you
and
have
I
a
could talk to
1-minute
you guys
warning.
about communication for hours. So ask some
Oh, no.
questions, get to know your people, make it personal. I'm going to skip a couple slides because there is conflict resolution is something I really want to talk about, because that it tends to be in communication where we drop the ball a lot, is with those difficult customers, those frustrating customers. They're the ones that stick with us. So these are what we call the red flag words. These are words not to use when dealing with those difficult customers, because it's adding fuel to that fire. We don't want to fuel the fire. We want to put the fire out. So words like can't, won't, you have to, Policy, I will preach this all day long. Policy is internal. It's not external. Your customers don't care what your policy is. Yes, but what does that but do? It just took away the yes. It negated it. I told you. Who tells you I told you so? Your parents. I want to feel like I'm being scolded in an interaction. So those are the red flag words. Some examples of ways to flip that. I believe you guys will have access to the slides. If not, our emails are going to be up at the end. So if you want this, shoot us an email. I'm more than happy to share this. But brief example, I can't get you in this Friday. Instead of saying I can't get you in this Friday, you know what? My next available appointment is Monday at 2:00. Can I go ahead and schedule you for then? So just changing those can'ts, won'ts, and don'ts to the cans and wills. We were going to talk a little bit about feedback. It is a huge part of Toastmasters. So please come to Toastmasters if you're interested in that. Again, if you want to check that out, come as a guest. Tracy and I are both officers for the Toastmasters group. You can shoot me an email. I'm the vice president of membership, so I'm more than happy to guide you through that process. But feedback is something that we've learned a lot about. We used to look at it as a negative thing, and it's so not. It's so not. It's a gift. It's something that we need. We need to, talking about those reviews, collecting feedback from our customers, but also collecting feedback from our employees, staying interviews, interviewing them and asking them, am I doing a good job? Am I providing the tools you need? How could I make your life a little bit easier? So giving good feedback glows and grows is a great way to do it. Being specific, like Tracy was saying, with the intention, it's a conversation, not an event. And don't criticize. Criticism could make somebody defensive. And Tracy has a really good point here on the sandwich technique, because this is something a lot of people go to, and she's changed my mind about it.
Yes. So sandwich technique, and it was Dave Wyman, another episode that I can reference absolutely. He challenged this idea that if you follow the sandwich technique because it's so mainstream, a good with a bad and a good, you're almost conditioning the people in your life that good news comes with bad news. And it's very transparent. And like Sara was saying, the yes, but, and when you're saying you did a good job, but the only thing the person is thinking of is, what is the but about? I did a terrible job. I'm not good enough. I'm not gonna, that's it. And so I think that technique, when you really rely on it heavily as your only form of feedback, it can be really difficult. And so when Sara was said, yes, but, I would like to say that instead of saying, but, change it to now. So Joe, you had a really great call with that customer. Now let's work on maybe your smile a little bit and a little bit more energy. You know what? That's a lot that diffuses attention. It's a compliment, and it's also a little area of improvement and growth instead of critiquing.
Exactly. If we're always giving somebody a bad with a good, there's this, I'm never doing anything right. So with giving feedback, that's a great way to think about it. There are lots of other ways to give feedback than the sandwich technique. It does work. And in some situations but as Tracy said, just don't heavily rely on it of your only way of giving feedback. So I want to thank AutoLeap and Amber again for having us here today. This was phenomenal. We had such a great time. And I want to thank Tracy for doing her very first class with me. I'm honored to have her here, and writing this class with her has been a joy. So both of our emails are up here. If you guys have any questions, you want the slides, you want to check out those podcast episodes that Tracy referenced, reach out to her. I think Amber said there's a booth in the event for Remarkable Results where you can get information there as well.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you so much, Amber. Thank you so much, AutoLeap. And thank you to the Institute, Kent and Cecil Bullard. We are at the headquarters right now. They hooked us up with internet. They have lighting. It's amazing. So thank you so much for letting us use your internet, because you know how I am with internet. It has to be connected. So thank you so much for that. And Sara, truly thank you for letting me do this with you, because it has been a huge joy, and it's also made me grow a little bit. So thank you.
Yeah. I love this. I think your guys are naturals. And I think that the most beautiful thing that you guys have said is that it is an ongoing, almost a work of art, right? Like as we go through different phases in our lives, we pick up on different ways of communicating with others. I think as you manage people, right, or you have children or whatever the case may be, I love that you brought the disc into this, because it is really beneficial to understand other people and how the ways that we may communicate may offend or affect people's reactions, right? And I love, Sarah, that you nailed, like, no disc is a bad disc. It's just who we are as human beings, and coming together and understanding that. You guys were wonderful. You continuously bring fantastic things to the industry, insights, knowledge. I would be remiss if I did not also thank the Institute, who has been a wonderful partner of AutoLeap really since the beginning. And the fact that they welcomed you, rolled out the red carpet, and
They
you guys
did.
are there. I am blown away by that. And just ultimately the message that continues is the community that we have. And I think it's so cool to come together. It makes me tear. But it's really cool what we have created, what everybody in this industry has created and is continuously doing to improve upon it. So I am going to get in trouble because I will be late for the next session. But thank you, ladies. I look forward to seeing you at Vision next week, and we will see you guys soon. Cheers.
Can't
Thank you,
wait.
everybody.
Thanks, Amber.
Bye, guys.
See ya.